Welcome to Sacrifice and Success, a podcast that looks at what we give up in order to thrive. I'm John Hegarty, chairman of Soho-based independent media agency Electric Glue. In this series, I'm talking to people from the creative industries about what they have sacrificed to be where they are today. With me in the studio today is Camara, who at 17 became the only photographer to brave the Rio favelas during a drug dealer's war. His personal story from this time became the script for the film City of God. Since then, he has won multiple awards for his war and news photography and made the hard decision to amputate his leg after complications from a car accident. Andre,
hello.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us here
today.
Thank
you for having me.
I mean, there are so many things about your life that is about sacrifice. It's just incredible. But I want to go back to the very beginning of how you got into photography, how you started, and it was way back in Rio, in Brazil.
And 1984. I was 15 years old.
15 years old. You weren't out playing football or going to become a great footballer. You picked up a camera. Tell us about that.
Well, basically, when I was very, very young, about 7, I remember it was probably the first Christmas present that I've asked for. You know, because before 7, you just get presents, you don't ask for it. But when I said, "Oh, what do you want for Christmas?" I remember I asked for an Instamatic camera. It was a Kodak, one of those little boxes.
I know them. I knew them well.
Yeah, and I was fascinated with it. I used to go and take everywhere I went, and take loads of pictures. And put those films in and take loads of pictures. And my mom, she got for Christmas a Nikon camera, a proper Nikon camera with a couple of lenses. So 2 different lenses and the camera. She had it for a couple of years. When I was around 12. I started trying to use the camera, trying to, every time she got the camera out, I would go and try to use it and try to take pictures of it. She came to me and she said, "Look, Andre, if you learn to use it, if you do a photography course, I'll give you the camera." The next day, I found a course, and it was in the university. Actually, I was like the baby of the course, a 6-month course, something like that. And then she, as promised, gave me the camera. So then I had a Nikon and a couple of lenses when I was 13 or so.
You were so young still, but
yeah. It was about 15. There was a major national newspaper in Brazil. It was called Jornal do Brasil. And it was one of the major nationals. And he was like the best photography team that there was at that time. Then I got in touch with the newspaper, and I asked for a chance to work for that young newspaper. And it was that newspaper that had the amazing team of photographers that were famous for their art. And so I got in touch with them, and they said, "Come over for an interview." And I went and I was interviewed, and they said, "Yeah, let's start slowly." I started slowly doing 1 story a week, 2 stories a week, but then became successful. I started doing really well, and then I ended up doing like the whole of the newspaper, almost the whole of the I started having 5, 6, 7,
still only
8
16
stories a week. Yeah, at 15, and I used to
doing the whole newspaper.
And I used to leave school, because I went to university. I didn't stop school, but I used to leave school in the afternoon, because it was like the school term was like from 7:30 to 1 o'clock, or 7:30 to 12:30, the school time. So I used to leave school and go straight to the newspaper, straight every day. Even though they didn't have jobs for me every day, but every day I would go to the newspaper anyway. And then
just to make sure.
No, sometimes lots of jobs I did get was because I was there. I ended up, I was there. So, we got this story.
Make yourself available. That's the lesson there, isn't it?
That
Make
was
yourself
good,
available. Constantly going there, working, making the sacrifice to kind of,
the sacrifice
being a young teenager.
The sacrifice of it wasn't something that I realized at that time. I didn't, because I was going for what I loved, but later on in life, I kind of realized that it was a time where all my friends after school would go and play football. and I was go to the newspaper. So I had big loss on socializing with my mates because I was always at the newspaper.
At the newspaper looking for work.
Yeah.
So how did your position at the paper develop from there?
The picture had started giving me jobs for the weekends. So I used to get weekend shifts. So Saturdays and Sundays, again, not going play with my friends and not going to the social with the kids.
By then, surely girls were appearing, and you weren't dating those, or
no, I was I was being in a way I can't run from the fact that being a photographer for that newspaper was a success with the girls at school.
Oh my
anyway.
word!
Yeah.
No, we won't go down there. Well, look, let's do a quick ripple dissolve to you finally started photographing these gangs in the favelas.
There was a war going on between two factions.
Tell us, this is amazing. Tell us about this.
Okay,
yeah.
so basically what happens is when in every slum in Brazil, in every slum they have drug dealing, and usually you have one gang controlling the slum. So the gang that control the slum, they're the ones who sell the drugs. Now, every once in a while, there's a new gang or there's a new guy wanting to be the boss. So either they split into factions or someone comes from the outside, from a different slum or whatever, to try to be the king of that place. And so then you have a war called drug dealer war, where you have two factions of drug dealers in one slum trying to, well, basically kill each other for the prize of being the owner of that slum,
running that slum,
running the drug dealing of it. And it started somehow spilling out a bit outside the slums. So, and the slums in Rio, they're very much inside the urban areas. And what the police used to do at that time, they used to surround the slum, so not to allow the war to come out of the slum. They used to surround the slum, and wait, because what used to happen is one of the factions ended up killing the other, and then that's when the police used to go in after the war was over. So then the police would go in to make a scene. Okay, we're in, we are under control, while the faction that had won would just hide away, and they would go in and make sure that everything was peaceful. Now there's no more war going on, and then they would go. Then the police would get out, and then they would start the drug dealing again, but without any war, because the faction had won the thing. So because there was a war going on, you had the newspapers and television sending crews every day to where the police was, to just sit down and wait. It's going to stand by. So then this day I was sent to be the one covering that story for my newspaper. So I went there and I was there with the other photographers and reporters chatting away, and lunchtime kind of arrived, and there was we were right at the street at the bottom of the slum, and I remember being concentrated there with a long lens, trying to looking up, see if we could see anybody, any of the warriors, any of the drug dealers, running with guns or stuff, because sometimes you could see that from a distance, and I was trying to see if I could see it, because it was one of the headquarters of one of the factions was quite near to the edge of the slum. But so at some stage it was all quiet. The reporters and photographers decided to go for lunch, which in fact they were going for a drink. And instead of talking about going there, I decided that I didn't wanna go. I'm gonna hang around here to see if I can spot one of them on the top. And that was my idea. And they said, "Okay, Andre, you're not coming." "No, I'm not coming. I'm staying now." Okay.
So you sacrificed lunch.
So I sacrificed on that one. I sacrificed lunch. Yeah. So then at some stage, while the other guys had gone, I look up and I'm looking up, trying to see if I can see anybody. And I see one of the drug dealers popping out from a house and kind of looking at us, and I wasn't sure he was a drug dealer, but he just looked dodgy and suspicious. And then he looked at us down there. It's about 200 yards of steps from the the urban area to going into the slum, and he was at the top of the steps, and I was trying to get a picture, and I put my camera down, and he was beckoning. and he was beckoning.
He was calling you in.
Calling us in, because there was, me and there was a driver. I think there was a couple of drivers with me as well, and he started beckoning us, and I'm like, but nobody was going up because of the war going on. But the guy was beckoning, and I'm like, okay, well, this is maybe a chance to go up. And I remember I looked to the TV cameraman, and he kind of crossed his finger on his throat, saying like, no, it's not. You're going to be
I'm
dead.
not mad.
Yeah, I'm not that mad. And
got you in.
That's when I grabbed my cameras and I went up to say, when I was getting close, I saw he had the gun, and I kind of felt a bit, oops. He is a drug dealer and he's got a gun, but he kept on beckoning me, so I went and then when I got there, he started telling me that we are the good guys. Talking about his faction. No, we are the good guys. We take care of the community. We are the good guys, and the other guys, they're horrible. They're the bastards. We are the good guys. And I said, are you? And he said, yes. I said, so how did that happen? And he said, no, because we drill drugs, but we make sure everybody's safe. We take care of the community. And he started telling me, and he was very much under the influence of a lot of drugs. I suspect that because the war had been going on for a couple of days or so. And the shooting really happens more at night time. I mean, he was clearly completely intoxicated with cocaine.
But that must have been hugely dangerous, because in that situation, somebody can be quite...
Absolutely. At one point later on, they point one of the guys that was most intoxicated with cocaine that I've seen in my life. He pointed the gun at me, and as a joke, and I jumped like there's no tomorrow. I never jumped so far in my life in one go. Yeah, and then I'm just joking. I'm like, okay. I didn't find it very funny.
No, I can see that.
But then he started talking to me, and I said, look, I'm not I'm not a reporter. I'm a photographer. I'm not going to write a story. I take pictures. Can I take a picture of you? And he said, no, you can't take a picture of me. But then there's another thing where I grew up very near a slum, and I used to go and play football inside the slum with the kids there. So I knew very much about their lingo, about the way
you could speak their language.
I could speak the way they spoke. It's like here you would say someone is speaking, like Cockney. So they had their own Cockney, and I knew a lot because I grew up speaking with, playing football with them, and also the Cockney, or the drug dealer's Cockney was very well known to me. So I was at the very beginning I started, and we started this conversation, and they were feeling very comfortable with me because the way I was speaking with them, and then suddenly somebody came to buy some cocaine, someone had just bought some cocaine off them and was snorting on a box. There was a fruit box on the floor, and he was kind of kneeling down and chopping his cocaine on the fruit box or on top of an ID card, and chopping the cocaine and ready to snort. And I thought, I gotta get a picture of that. And then there was a guy sitting down with a gun on his waist right in front of me, and I had a wide angle, and I thought I can take a picture of this gun and the guy with the cocaine. As I got my camera up, he said, no pictures, no picture of me. I said, no, I don't take a picture of you, but can I take a picture of your gun? It's an amazing gun. Oh my God, it's one of the most amazing guns I've ever seen in my life. And he was like, oh yes, it's a Browning 9mm, this and that, whatever. And then I said, can I take a picture of your gun? And he said, yeah, a picture of my gun you can take. So then I got really close to his gun with the wide angle, and obviously they didn't know what wide angle was. And then on the side of the picture, so you have this big gun on the foreground, a bit out of focus, but the focus is on the side of the picture of this guy snorting cocaine on the
So
side.
you got
So it was-
two sides of the story, didn't you? The danger and the delight that some people got
well,
from it.
I was amazed. I mean, because at that time nobody had. I hadn't seen any pictures of anybody had got pictures of drug dealers so close and so explicit as I was doing. Safety completely out of the window.
You must have been sacrificing your safety at any moment. One of them could suddenly flip.
Yeah, that's how it kind of almost happened when he was joking and he pointed the gun at me and said, "I'm gonna shoot you," and I kind of jumped out and said, "No," I said, I'm joking. I was like, "Oh, please don't joke like that again, man. Look, a bit more and I would have to change underwear."
Sacrifice your clean underwear.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be terrible.
But no, sanity. Actually, sanity. I was there. I mean, later on, I did those pictures, and then anyway, I then did a whole bunch of pictures of these guys. Some of them showing their guns and the guy snorting the cocaine. I did everything, and then while this was going on, I had already a bunch of very good pictures. We heard a shot behind me. Somewhere behind, a bit further up from where we were, and we heard a shot and then another two shots, and then the guys got really hyped because there was a shooting and the guys got really hyped, and I said, "Oh, now get away, now you go, go," and I said, "Yes, of course," and I ran those steps. I almost fell those steps running down. They were jumping by steps, by 3 or 4 steps, but I had got the pictures. When I got down there, because of the shootings, the guys were coming back from the bar. And I was like, "Yo, Joe, what's going on?" I said, "There's shooting. Can you see them? And I was like, "I saw them."
I was there.
But you didn't have digital, so they couldn't see it. They couldn't see what I did. And I was like, "I got it. And they couldn't believe me.
So that moment...
At that moment, they couldn't believe... They didn't believe that I had gone up there. Anyway, the next day, when the newspaper used on the front page and it splashed the pictures around. So it was... Then everybody knew what I had got.
So that moment, in a sense, that sort of sacrifice you made there changed your life in a way, didn't it?
Yeah. It was a big jump in my career.
Jump.
Yeah, it was a big jump. It was something. It was the first time that I was doing something that nobody else had done before. It was the first time that I had got such an impact on outside with my pictures. It was the first time, and like such a big impact.
And then, of course, those pictures became the inspiration for the film City of God.
Yeah, yes, in a way, yes, the picture, because the City of God story is told by the prism of a photographer who is taking pictures of the drug dealers. And yes, that photographer taking pictures of the dealers is me.
It's based on you.
Yeah, but it's not the film story. The film story is actually based on a different drug war in a different slum. And in the film, the photographer is from the slum, so he's actually. So they created the story of a different drug dealer war through the view of a photographer, which on that drug dealer war didn't exist. So they brought this photographer into it, from the idea of this young photographer getting pictures of the drug dealers, which was what I did.
But what I love about that story is that the sense of, great art needs sacrifice in some shape or form. You've got to be prepared to give something up to create something great. In that sense, you were, in a way, possibly giving up your life, because you could have got shot with that. But out of it came these amazing pictures. Out of that, the inspiration for City of God.
Necessarily not art. I mean, I would say especially art from what I am, but necessarily, I think in life, any big decisions we have to make, or big choices we have to make, usually we're sacrificing one, to pursue the other.
Especially in a world today where, people think you can have everything. You can be everything, you can do everything. You don't have to try one thing, you can do 10 different things, and it doesn't matter. And in a sense, there is an argument that says you've got to sacrifice. You've got to understand how to give one thing up to become better at something else. Do one thing and do one thing brilliantly. And in a sense, that's what you did.
You're listening to Sacrifice and Success, a podcast brought to you by independent media agency Electric Glue.
eventually you came to London. Why London?
Then after that was another sacrifice. Why London? Because
you had to leave your family, you had to leave your possible career.
I had a comfortable life, and then the newspaper decided that they were going to have they wanted to have a photographer and a reporter based in Europe to cover European stories, and that for me was like I'm gonna go and see the world. I wanted, and I remember that I wasn't the only photographer that wanted to come. There was some other photographers in the team that wanted the position. But when I was a kid, I had lived in America for a couple of years with my parents, and so my English was very good. And by then I was already a very good photographer as well. I had already
accomplished.
I had already learned a lot, and I had the respect of the bosses, and so when I kind of put my name forward, I ended up being the one that got the job, and then I came as a correspondent of the Brazilian newspaper. Once these couple of years were getting to an end, I decided to leave the newspaper. Now it was about 3 years. I was doing for about 3 years. I decided to. Then it was sort of they were going to kind of rotate or go back to Brazil. So I was like, just go back to Brazil, or what do I do? And I left the newspaper.
But again, the security of leaving the newspaper, going out on your own.
Yeah, I had already sacrificed. Leaving my family and leaving everything in Brazil to come here, like on my own, on my own with nothing to kind of. I had already acclimatized to that, and I was enjoying being here. And then I managed to get first job with Associated Press, and for me that was such a jump in my career to work for an international agency. And then I kind of started staying, and then never went back.
And never went back. And of course, apart from lots of great photographs you took on that terrible day in London. The terrorist bombing, just after we'd heard that we were going to host the Olympics. The next day the bomb went off, and you capture the kind of iconic picture of that poor woman coming out of the underground or wherever it was with the bandage across her face, that became a kind of symbol of that kind of destruction that there is amongst us. Again,
and also had someone helping her. So you had kind of the human side of how everybody got together to.
It was a powerful picture. I mean, so tell me, Andre, in that situation, there you are. Your one bit of you is going, I've got to keep going because I've got to get the picture. There's got to be another bit of you going, I've got to get out of here. And you've got these two opposing forces.
Yes, but your heart, because your mind might be thinking, maybe you shouldn't really be doing this, or that's not so safe, or while your mind goes along with that, your heart is like, no man, go for it.
I think my heart would be saying, get the hell out of there now.
You gotta get the picture. You gotta get the picture, and then you just I think the adrenaline takes over as well. Yeah. Adrenaline takes over, and you don't think too much. You more react to your feelings.
But even so, you've got these two opposing elements within you.
Well, you sacrifice one of them.
Yes,
obviously.
That's what I mean. One of them was sacrificed.
Straight away, you sacrifice your sanity. Being a news photographer, you do that a lot. I mean, how many of them die in wars, and how many photographers get killed just for, and all you want to do is get there and get the best pictures.
And you don't expect that to happen in the centre of London on a Saturday,
No, you don't. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So then I finished the job, and I got the front page of all the newspapers, and the ecstasy that I was feeling was unbelievable. But at the same time, boom, then I found out that one of my friends died
killed
the same day, trying to do the same thing, going to try to get the picture of the day.
Again, that sacrifice, going right back to the favela with the guy pointing the gun at you. Here you were, a bomb could have gone off in front of you.
Yeah, and it did go off in front of my colleague.
Yeah.
Just somehow, an hour before or whatever it was.
Incredible. That must have. Did that change you at all? Did his death change you? Did it?
Not really. No, I was it wasn't even. I wasn't even thinking of, oh, Andrea, you sacrificed your sanity. It could have been you, and don't do that again. No, my difficulty was to synchronize the ecstasy that I was from the success that I had produced with the shock and sadness of having a colleague. It wasn't a close friend, but it was a colleague, a guy I knew, that had died with the same aim. So at that moment, it was difficult to enjoy my success, knowing that
somebody
my
paid the
colleague
ultimate
had
price.
paid the ultimate price, doing
Yeah.
exactly what I was doing, on the same moment.
It didn't, at that moment, you didn't sort of say to yourself, do you know, I think now I'm going to just go away and photograph sunsets.
No,
I'm just going to photograph things which can't blow up in my face.
The only time that I stopped and thought, okay, Andrea, it was some years later, I stopped and I thought, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't risk my life like that anymore, was when I started having kids.
So children caused you to sacrifice that part of your career.
Exactly. People say that having kids is a sacrifice. In many levels, in many ways, yes. It's a sacrifice, obviously. But it ended up being a sacrifice on one road of my career. I went to the first Gulf War, and I was in Baghdad for a couple of months, and
this is the Gulf War,
Yes,
you were there for that.
Yes, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I love war photography. The excitement was overwhelming, and I was up for any war, for any dangerous situation. I would be the first one to say, please let me go. But then when I started having kids, then I had to sacrifice that
part of your career.
So the sacrifice of the sanity that I started on the beginning of my career and throughout my career, I kind of started grabbing it back.
So Andre, you had to sacrifice your career as a war photographer. You had a fantastic reputation for your own sake of sanity, your own sense of sanity. You now had children. You were thinking about them. And then you were confronted by this terrible decision you had to make about amputating your leg. You'd had a car accident and that you were having complications with your leg and you had to have it amputated. That must have been very, very hard.
That was probably, consciously, it was the biggest sacrifice that I had, I think.
Tell us about that.
Because then I had to think, oh, I am going to sacrifice these. I had to sacrifice a leg. I had to let it go. The story is that when I was 18, and that was a couple of years before I left Brazil to come to England, I had a car accident, and I used to drive like a lunatic when I was 18, and I had a car accident. And out of the car accident, because I was taken to a dirty hospital from the car before I was taken to a proper hospital, I was taken to kind of dirty A&E, and I got gangrene. I had an open fracture, and he caught gangrene from it. So I went through 14 operations in a space of about 6 months to save the leg, where they take off the flesh. They have a series of operations taking off the flesh that is infected with gangrene, and then you have a leg where I remember I could see the bone. I remember laying in the hospital bed with my leg hanging up on some threads, and you could see the bone out of it, and it was really, so they take it all off, and then after they take all the bit that is gangrened off, they insert, or
they transplant.
They transplant from they took a muscle from my back, the dorsi, the latimus dorsi. They took it from my back, they plugged in there, and bits from the other leg, and they put it in there, and they rebuilt and reconstruct your leg. So since I was 18, I had a leg that had gone through that and had been rebuilt. So, and it worked well. I lost the movement of my foot. Mm-hmm. The foot was fused into the tibia, and I lost the other bit of the bone as well. But the foot was fused, and everything was put back in there. So it was a mess. But I could walk, and I came to England when I was 20 with a leg like that, and I had my life, and I had my success in life that I was having, without any problem. But I couldn't run. and I would limp, and I couldn't run much, or couldn't run at all, and I limped. And I couldn't if I stand up for too long would hurt. It was kind of a painful, but I could live with it, and I did live, and I did my things. But later on, some 14 years later, and apparently that usually happens with old bone injuries. The bits of the bone die, and then you have a bone infection.
It sort of perishes, yeah.
So if that bits of bone, which doesn't mind, you don't notice really, because normally the bone is full of circulation, blood circulation. But if there's a dead bit of the bone, the blood doesn't reach. So I had one day, then I had an infection on the leg, and the antibiotics killed the infection, because the blood takes antibiotic there, but the bugs that survive, they survive because they recede into the dead bones
into the perished bone.
Yeah, they recede there. So then you think the infection is over, it's done, you're well again, but the bacteria is living there. So then you go, you get a stressful moment in your life, or you low down again of energy and whatever, that it comes all over again.
There's a kind of circularity
intermittent. So you have chronic. They usually call chronic infection. So they have it keeps on coming back. But to cut a long story short, so I started getting infections on the bone, and I couldn't deal. They couldn't fix it with antibiotics. They tried to operate and carve the bone where the bits. What they usually do, they carve the bone, the dead bits of the bone out, and let it grow again to see if it rejuvenates. But they didn't manage to either pinpoint where it was, or the operation didn't work. So I carried on having more infection until it got to a point where the doctor came to me once. I had a bad infection once, and the doctor came to me and said, "Look, Andre, this is what's happening. It's chronic. It's going to keep on coming back. And we think that your best option is to let it go, is to have the leg amputated." And I was shocked. And, suddenly the doctors say to you, "Oh, look, you've got two options. You can leave it the way it is. We can treat it, the infection, and then it's gonna be okay for a while. Or we think it's going to come back. Or, which we think is the best option, you have your leg amputated, and then boom. You don't ever have to worry about this infection anymore, ever, and pains and bad feelings." And he said to me, "You're going to have it amputated below your knee. It's going to be a below knee amputation. So you're going to have your knee. It's not that bad. It's not difficult. You're going to get used to it, and you're going to have a better life than you're having with your leg like that." So it was kind of for them it was clear. The decision I had to make. But
you're going.
Imagine.
So now I've got to sacrifice my leg.
And also because I went through what I went through before I had gone through 14 operations. It took a whole muscle in my back to rebuild the leg. I had the leg rebuilt. I was really proud. I had a bad leg, but I was proud of it. It was kind of a trophy of what I've been through to have it, and I got to the point where the best option was to lose the leg, and that was difficult. I remember when the doctor told me that in the morning. I remember it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. I went back to my car, and I called my dad, and it was about 5 o'clock in the morning in Brazil. I woke him up, and he said, "What's up? What's going on?" And I just started crying. And I think I called him for that, because I was for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes crying, not being able to say anything, just crying and feeling the whole difficulty of it. Because then
you were losing your leg. This was your
I was being told that the best option was to sacrifice the leg that I had, and then I had fought for it so much that I had to sacrifice it in order to have a better life. But at that moment, you're not thinking, I'm happy with my life. I don't need to be better. It's okay. It doesn't hurt that much. It's all right. I love it. I love my leg. I don't want to lose my leg. and I went to research what it meant to lose the leg, what's going to happen to you, how you're going to deal with it, or how you're going to, what are the choices you're going to have, and how it's going to happen, what happens, how does it happen. You don't know any of that. So I went to research and find out, because the doctor said to me, look, we'll give you some time to decide, decide about it, and then get back to us. Meanwhile, you keep on taking antibiotics for the infection, but
which can't be good for you.
No, which is
probably they're bad
drugs.
So you eventually made the decision
very quickly. So I kind of found out about it. It took me about a week of a bit of a suffering and difficulty. I said, okay. Sacrifice the leg.
Yeah, that was a brave decision.
Yes, I think.
But that's interesting, isn't it? Because there you are, you've made this huge sacrifice. You've finally got it through you. You've got to do it. I've got to lose my leg. There's no way around it. Otherwise, I'm going to be permanently taking antibiotics. And then you go, right, what next?
1 year after I came out of hospital, I started playing football. I started because I wanted to go back to normal. I wanted to go back to normal. I wanted to be as normal as possible. And I remember that I managed to get a leg it was a running leg. I was able to run with it. And I had been for years never been able to run the way
of course,
I was injured.
Your foot had been compromised.
Yeah, and so I learned to run with a leg. So I found out there was a league. That there is I don't know if they're still going on, but there was a league in England called the National Disabled League, and I ended up playing for Chelsea. Played for 2 seasons, and I had sponsorship. I managed to get sponsorship.
Was Jose Mourinho wasn't the manager back then? Was
No. But I played, we won one of the seasons I played, and then throughout that, I played for England. On a friendly against Wales, I was called in to play for England. I was on the bench, but I played the second half and I scored a goal.
And you scored. There you are. Isn't it amazing? So again, you may have sacrificed
the leg, but I ended up playing for England.
Andre, we asked to bring a quote or a poem about sacrifice. Do you have something to offer us?
I've looked. I must have seen about 700 quotes on sacrifice. I looked into it, and then when I was looking for quotes, I thought I'm going to go to the top men. So I came across Shakespeare in King Lear, saying, "Upon such sacrifices, my Cordelia, the gods themselves throw incense."
Wow.
So it's something like sacrifice is something that the gods want of you. But then at the same time, I went through the ultimate sacrifice. I went to have a look at Jesus and what he said about sacrifice. And now he says the other way around. He says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice." So, and he says that in Matthew 9:13. He says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice." And he gets that from Hosea, Hosea 6:6, talking from God's mouth. So in Hosea 6:6 is what God is saying. God says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. But
the origin of the word sacrifice comes from sacrificial, does it not?
It comes from sacrificius, I think, which is sacri, sacred, and ficius, to do or to make.
To make. So there you are.
To do or to make, yes. So it's got
the etymology of the word.
It's very religious.
It's very profound.
So the beginning of sacrifice was people being killed for God and animals and sacrifice of the body. But yes, and then I thought to myself, okay, well, forget about everybody else's quotes. Let me come up with something fresh.
Now I'll do mine.
I said, I'll do mine. I'll come up with something fresh. So I thought, okay, sacrifice, the password to success.
Well, that is brilliant. Sacrifice, the password to success. I think that's absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful thing to say.
We're just about out of time, but
if somebody wants to see your pictures, how can we get to see them?
I've got my website, which is Andre Pics, AndrePix.
Great stuff. So if you want to go and see Andre's brilliant photographs, do go to andrepix.com. Andre, thank you a million. That was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sacrifice and Success, a podcast brought to you by Electric Glue, an independent media agency that uses the art of sacrifice to help brands navigate a complex media world. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice.